Okay, dear, I'll check it. Yeah, darn thing's making a buzzing noise. Sounds like the motor's froze up. Step one is to go ahead and get this decorative cover off. That's easy enough, just one simple thumb screw. The next little project, of course, is to go ahead and unplug it so I can work on it safely. There are two little 1/4-inch screws on either side of the main little fan housing here. And the fan housing has got U-shaped connector on it, so all I've really got to do is just rotate the housing and to get the fan down. I can already tell there's a little bit of lint on the fan itself. Probably got back in the bearings. That may be what's going on, is the bearings just binding up. Now that I've got it out, I'll go ahead and take it on the back porch and proceed to take the little fan itself apart. Here are all the removable parts. Probably going to go ahead and take this little cover and clean it up with a little 409 just to get all the lint off, and it looks like something like soap scum on it, so hopefully the WD-40 will take that off. After that, we'll take a look at the little fan itself. The next thing I'm going to need to do is take this little mounting bracket off. In this case, there are two 5/16 nuts, and they just unscrew and come off. Make sure you take note of the bracket location. You can put it on backwards, and of course, all you'd have to do is just take the nuts off and then turn them around and put them back on again. Now I got to take a little fan wheel off, and you can see it's on there pretty tight. Actually, it's fairly easy to get off. You just take it and hold the fan wheel in your hand with the motor on the downside, and then take a small nail or punch and tap it gently on the end of the shaft, and the fan wheel will come right off. The next thing on my list is to go ahead and take a little motor apart. Once again, 2/4-inch little bolts on this. I've got to take them both all the way out. Now, before you start this, make sure you look and see which way the little bearings are put on the motor. You can check by looking at where the wiring comes out of the motor windings and looking to see which should be on top and which should be on bottom. After you get the two bolts out, it's entirely possible the little output shaft may have a little rust on it, or in essence what looks like soap scum on it. You could probably take this off using either WD-40 or light sandpaper. You probably have to do this, of course, before you can slide the bearing off the shaft. Now that I've got my little motor apart, I'm going to go ahead and take a little wire brush and try to remove any loose lint that's anywhere near the motor bearings or the motor itself. This is just to clean it up to make sure that it's not going to bind up the bearings or bind up the motor. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and lubricate everything. I'm the type of guy that likes to use both WD-40 and a light machine oil, or motor oil in this case. Something like 20-weight synthetic seems to be pretty good, as well as a spray or two of WD-40. When you're lubing everything down, you want to make sure you get all the way around the little bearing. In this case, these little bearings are kind of a ball joint. They tend to float inside the housing, which will allow, of course, for minor shaft misalignment. I like using WD-40 in addition to motor oil because it'll tend to loosen up anything that may be binding, and also it soaks real quickly into the bearing itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the bearings back on the motor, hold the bearing stationary, and rotate the shaft. I'm just making sure everything is nice and smooth. I'm also going to check and make sure the ball joints are okay, that the bearings will rotate slightly in their housings to allow for any shaft misalignment. If I see all this, then it's pretty well ready to reassemble. Well, I put the two screws back in it, tightened it all back up. Let's check and see how well it runs. As you can see, turning very smoothly, no noise. Looks like a little lubrication is all it took, so I'm going to go ahead and put it all back together. Okay, all I'm really doing here is pointing out the fact you can put the motor back together upside down. In this case, the wires should face down away from the fan blade itself. If you put it together the other way, chances are the wires are going to hit the fan. You'll know that pretty quick. But it'll also cause the motor to run backwards. In essence, you may make a supply fan instead of an exhaust fan. Or at the very least, it won't move near as much air as it should. Now we're ready to put the fan bracket back on the motor. Note in this case, the little mounting screw that holds the cover in place is just floating. It's basically between the bracket and the motor, and that's the only thing that's holding it. And I hope you were paying attention when you took the bracket off as to which way the bracket goes. I went ahead and used my fingers just to push the little fan wheel back on the motor. It slides on pretty easy. After that, the next step, of course, is to put it back in the main housing and give it a try. You'll want to stick your hand up in the housing and figure out where the discharge opening is. You want the blade turning like it is trying to throw air toward the opening, not away from the opening. Now that I've got the fan back in the housing, it's time to go ahead and turn it on, make sure it runs nice and smooth, and make sure my repair is successful. Sounds good to me. I'm going to call that a wrap. Take care, y'all. I'll see you on the next video.